בשעה טובה. אוקיי, בשעה טובה. מוצלחת. So we continuing פרק ה' פסוק כ'. So we've learned in the last shiur the benefits and the collateral damages of not learning Torah versus yes learning Torah and how to learn Torah. And the structure of going from Pshat to Sod, and then Sod back to Pshat, and creating that osmosis between the layers of the Torah, so that when you teach with depth and with different layers of the Torah in the Pshat, and that's essentially that's the love that you desire, and that you're in a high of all the time. What was the word that he used?
Infatuated.
Mechila. I haven't graduated yet in English with that word. Okay, so pasuk chaf velama tishge. We're seeing the infatuated again, right? Velama tishge beni bezara. Why would you be infatuated, my son, bezara, with the forbidden woman? Utehabek hek nochia, and you will hug the hek, the bosom of the nochia. The nochia is the alien woman, right? And we know the difference. We've already seen the difference between the zara and the nochia. The zara is the forbidden. She's only forbidden because she's married to someone else, right? But eventually, she was once allowed, and she became forbidden, right? The alien has always been forbidden. It's worse. It's worse, right? In terms of in terms of yichus and relationship. Yeah? So says Shlomo HaMelech, "Velama tishgei," why be infatuated?
There's a French translation in
exalted like this. No, it's like
also.
It's what? It's like exalted, no? By like,
intoxicated. There's a lot of synonyms.
Yeah. In love, it's taking, it's consuming your emotions, right? Like it's overwhelming emotion. Infatuated. Okay. Infatuated. Okay. So, ולמה תשגה בני בזרה? Says the Gaon is referring to the greed. Why would you let the greed consume you? ותחבק חק נוחיה. That's referring to the nochia, to the alien woman. That's referring to the ta'ava, which is asur. Says the Gaon, Shlomo HaMelech used tishge, infatuated, right, for the himda, for the greed, and hibuk, and hug, for the alien, for the ta'ava. Why? He says greed does not have any pleasures associated to the greed, except for getting to the end result. By having greed, all you have is headaches and feeling of need, feeling of hisaron, feeling that you're missing something, and your nefesh is turmoiled and upside down, running around, making you run around to acquire what your greed is focused on. And when you rest, your mind is always thinking about how you're going to implement, right, a plan to get to what you want to own. So says the Gaon, there is really no benefits to the greed. There's no pleasures to the greed. And so what does the greed do? All it does is consuming your body and consuming your mind. That's velama tishge. That's the reason why Shlomo HaMelech uses infatuated. However, when we're talking about ta'ava, when we're talking about pleasures have benefits. The ta'ava, the desires give pleasure, immediate pleasure. So he says, Shlomo HaMelech uses the word hibuk, holding, like hugging. Because when you hug, there is a sentiment of comfort, a sentiment of reassurance, of satisfaction, right? And this is all you're getting from the ta'ava. It's a moment of feeling of satisfaction, of a moment when essentially we know what the outcome of it is. So why being consumed, right, by greed, and let yourself appeased or comforted by a moment of pleasure that is essentially asur, right? That is that's the nochia. Pasuk Kaf Alef. Ki nochach enei Hashem darke ish, because the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are focused, are in front, nochach, are in front of the path of men, of the ways of men. V'chol ma'agelotav mefales, and he evaluates, he weighs out, right, the ma'agelot, the course of men. We said that there's a difference between the way and ma'agal. Way is straight, ma'agelot are more tortuous, are more zigzaggy, right? Wavery. Says the Gaon, that's also referring to the Hemdah and the Ta'ava. It says, Ki nochach enei Hashem darkei ish, the ways of men are in front of the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Hemdah. Says, what does the Chemda do? What does the greed do? Pushes you to keep on going from one place to another, trying to get things, to grasp things, to acquire things. You're in constant movement. And when you're on the go, you tend to forget that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is actually watching. Why? Because when you're on the go, you don't really have anyone that knows you enough or that can make you feel bad. Because you're always in a different place. You're always in a different place. You're in a movement, in constant movement. So it's as if you're undetectable because you're always moving. So the same way you cannot be identified or judged by people because you're on the go and people really don't know you. So you think that you forget that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is actually fixated on you and looking only at you at all time. So says Shlomo HaMelech, don't be consumed by the greed and feel and think that because you're on the move, you're not being watched, because the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are fixated all the time on you and they are watching you. And says again, how could a person not be ashamed of his actions, knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu watches every move that the person makes? The Hemdah is very dynamic. It's very volatile. It's very reactional. Even though you might have a strategy and you put in place a strategy, yes, you're always on the defensive, making sure that your plan is coming to fruition. So because you're always on the move, there's no really time to introspect and with the Yeshuva Da'at, recognize that the Borei Olam is with me, because you're always engaged with something else, and your emotions, your mind, your body, everything is invested in the project, in the journey that the greed has engaged. So says Shlomo HaMelech, you might lose focus and forget because you're so busy and you're so overwhelmed, okay, that Hashem is watching, but Hashem is looking at every single move. He doesn't miss a bit of your actions. Bechol ma'agelotav mefales, says Shlomo HaMelech, says the Gaon, that's referring to the ta'ava, to the desires. And we know what this mefales means is evaluate, surveys, evaluate. He weighs. And we know that the ma'agelot, the ways that are devious, that are wavy, are smaller than the drachim. The ma'agal is more narrower and smaller than the drach. We spoke about it a few times. Says Shlomo HaMelech, even the little actions or thoughts or emotions that you use to deviate in order to satisfy a pleasure, HaKadosh Baruch Hu weighs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes into account. So it's true that in the greed, right, you can go all over, but there's a fixation on you. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching. He's watching. You can be running and jumping and going, but he has a very broad look at things. So he sees everything. His angle is very wide. When it comes to the magelot that are more narrow, that are more intricate, that are more subtle, HaKadosh Baruch Hu weighs them all. more detailed. It says, Shlomo HaMelech tells us that because a person may think, what do you mean? I have ta'avot, it's l'shem shamayim. The greed, you know why I have greed? Because I want to give tzedakah. It's not a bad greed. I deserve it. This guy's this. I deserve the building, not him. He's not giving tzedakah. I'll give the tzedakah. He doesn't know how to give tzedakah. He doesn't know what to do with the building. I'll make a minyan. I'll open a shul on the second floor. I'll take the retail. I'll make sure there's a mezuzah on the door. This guy, he wants to go on vacation, sandbox, this, that. It's not greed. So the Gaon, the person has the tendency to lie to himself and see a holy mission, okay, in his flaws in order to appease his conscience. So Shlomo HaMelech comes and says, Habibi, when you run all over, yeah, you might say whatever you want or make yourself believe whatever you want. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly why you're running and why you're trying to get what you're trying to get. And when you're slinky and you're preparing yourself for a ta'ava, but I'm not, but yes, but it's l'shem shamayim, but Kadosh Baruch Hu says, even the ta'avot, when you satisfy a ta'ava, Kadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it. So don't think that you can lie to yourself and get away with it. Now, that's Shlomo HaMelech addressing, again, the flaws and the rationalization a person make in order to feel okay and comfortable with his behavior. Yeah, you can fool people, you can lie to people, you can even lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He sees it all and he weighs it all. So he says, when it comes to the Hemdah, your actions are pretty clear. You make moves, you try to buy, you try to sell, you try to cancel someone's appointment, you try to make another appointment, yeah. You make the call before the guy. Yeah, these are bold actions. Yeah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at you in the eyes. He's looking at your actions. When it comes to the ta'avot is much more intricate. There's a lot of emotion, thoughts. It's more refined. Okay? That's why he says, he weighs. Okay? He sees the tangents, the degrees. He sees how much equilibrium and how much emet there is, and based on the emet, he sees, how much you tilt it to the right or how much you tilt it to the left, and every tilt, HaKadosh Baruch Hu take into account. Basically, coming to tell us that even this Yetzer Hara that you have, that may make you feel good about what you're doing, at the end of the day, if it's not mamash l'shem shamayim, even if you pretend it's l'shem shamayim, it's still considered greed and it's still considered ta'avot with all the outcomes that it yields and that comes with it. Pasuk Chav Bet. Again, about the person, right? We're still in the same Tavot and the Chemda. Avonotav ilkeduno. We know that avonot are what? Are averot that a person does, bemezid, right? He knows that he's doing it, and he's doing it to satisfy his pleasures. Avonotav ilkeduno. His avonot, the sins that he does willingly, will trap him. Will trap the rasha. And with the cords, the ropes of his chet, which chet is bishogeg, chet is a sin that he does unwillingly, itamer, he will get caught up. So says the Gaon,
Chet is not willingly.
yeah, but that's a chet is what you do b'shogeg. You didn't mean to do it. Avon is you know what you're doing and you're doing it purposely. And pesha is to be mered, is to make a Kadosh Baruch Hu upset. But that's not what Shlomo Melech is talking here. But yeah, that's chatati aviti pashati. The chet is b'shogeg, is unwillingly. The avon is willingly to satisfy your pleasure. You know what you're doing, and you don't care that it's against Hashem's will. But the pesha is when you do it knowing that you're making a Kadosh Baruch Hu upset. So says the Gaon, Avonotav ilkodenu et harasha. The avonot here are referred to the mitzvot lo ta'aseh. He says that we know from last year that the lo ta'aseh, the lo ta'aseh are more respected than the aseh, right? We're more careful not to sin and do something that is not allowed than to actually accomplish the mitzvah, a commandment, a proactive commandment to do something. He says, what traps a person in his life, which lead him to Gehinam, to a place of pain, of it, and punishment. The punishment, the pain of the punishment, being trapped in a behavior that you cannot get yourself out of, comes from the lo ta'aseh. This is what breaking the law of not doing something leads to. If you don't do an aseh, you're not trapped. You didn't do an aseh. You didn't do an aseh. But when you do a lo ta'aseh, you engage in a world of impurity and darkness that is very sticky and that will hold you in a place that you might not get out of. The fact that you don't, for example, the fact that you don't put tefillin doesn't make you a bad person. But if you eat taref, if you're mehalel Shabbat, if you eat chametz on Pesach, if you eat on Yom Kippur, right? If you do something that is asur according to the Torah, that is what gets you stuck. And this is what gets a person stuck in Gehinam. That's avonotav ilkedonu et harasha. The rasha, which continuously did averot, okay, lo ta'aseh, will get stuck because of his avonot in Gehinnom. Now, we're not talking about a lo ta'aseh that you didn't do purposely. We're talking about a lo ta'aseh that you know that you're not allowed to do it and you still do it. But we're talking about the avon. So you're doing it consciously. You're choosing an action that essentially is outside of the what is called hayim. Like the Torah says, "Ubaharta b'chaim," you have to choose life. What is life? Life is Torah, mitzvot, u'ma'asim tovim. And when you do a avera against what you're supposed to do, you're choosing death over life. So by choosing death over life, the midah kedeget midah is that in Gehinnom, it's not a purification to get to life. It's a Gehinnom that is a world of death. And for that reason, the person gets trapped in it and doesn't get out of it. Doesn't get out of it. So afterwards, that's עוונותיו ילכדנו את הרשע. ובחבלי חטאתו, כן, יתמך. He says that's the chataim of aseh. That's not accomplishing the proactive mitzvot. He says when you don't do a mitzvah aseh, you're not stuck. However, once you're accountable for the lo ta'aseh, and there is a place for that person in Gehinnom because of his lo ta'aseh, because of his avonot, the aseh that he didn't do becomes accountable.
One more time.
As long as there is no lo ta'aseh, as long as there's no transgression of prohibitions that bring upon a man Gehinnom, death in Gehinnom, you didn't do a proactive mitzvah commandment, you didn't do it. You didn't, there's no plus, but there's no minus. But if the person transgress a prohibition willingly and does the avon willingly and did not do teshuvah, obviously, so that behavior, those actions, as a midah keneged midah, you chose death over life, right? In the world to come, you will be in a world of death and not a world of life, which is the Gehinnom. But at that point, you're not only paying for the transgression of the prohibitions, you pay also for the aseh you didn't do.
It changes the accountability on not doing the aseh.
Exactly. And he says, ובחבלי חטאתו יתמך. He says, יתמך is to be caught up, right? He says, all those assays that the person didn't do are so much that they're like ropes that are like that that now you're stuck and you cannot get out anymore. You cannot get out anymore of that place that's called death in Gehinnom. Which means that when a person is insensitive about the prohibition, and he does it, and he keeps on doing it, and he doesn't care about it, and obviously he doesn't do the aseh either. He doesn't do the proactive commandments. his behavior becomes so heavy and so sticky that he can, unless there's a Yeshua and somebody comes and actually rips him out of himself, okay, to help him to do teshuvah, there's no way out. There's no way out. And what is the end result? Pasuk Kav Gimel, Hu yamut be'en musar, uberov ivalto yishge. He ends up dying be'en musar, without any discipline, without any musar. The Musar never actually did anything to him. Uberov ivalto yishge, and his folly, right? And because there was so much folly that Yishge, he was consumed, right? He was infatuated. He was infatuated by all this folly. He says, "Uyamut be'en musar." Says Shlomo HaMelech, says the Gaon Mivilna, that's referring to the ta'ava, to the desire. Because how do you fix the ta'ava? With musar, right? With discipline. How do you educate your desires? Through discipline. The more discipline you have, and the more you regiment your behavior and you control your instinct. The person didn't want discipline. So the midah keneged midah, you wanted ta'ava over discipline, right? Yamut. That's the punishment. That's the punishment of the ta'ava, is death, physical death. You chose physical pleasures. The midah keneged midah is physical death. Uberov ivalto yishge, and he's going to get consumed because by all this folly that he had. Says Shlomo HaMelech, that's referring to the greed. Says you were consumed all the time about what you want to get that you don't deserve. It's not yours, but you have so much greed that you keep on amassing and you're imposed on your body and on your mind constant movement and constant turbulence and troublesome. And that's the choice you made, right? Because of the greed. In Gehinnom, there is a place called Kaf Hakela. There is a place in Gehinnom where it's not purification, it's in between. It's in limbo. It's like imagine somebody that keeps on running and never stops running. He can never stop. He's floating and he cannot. He has to walk. He can't sit. He cannot sit. Gehinnom is okay. There's 11 months of suffering, cleansing, purifying, and then the person goes to Gan Eden and finish. The greed brings a person to a place called Kaf Hakela, which is you chose to be in constant movement and in constant turmoil because you wanted. This is what the person gets in Gehinnom. He's in a place where there is never a stop. It never stops. The punishment never stops. He's in constant turmoil and pain in Gehinnom. That's called Kaf Hakela. In limbo, he's in a limbo like this. There's no rest of the neshama. Says the Gaon Mivilna, this is the midah keneged midah that Shlomo is addressing. The two traits that can lead a man to chaos and to physical death, which is the ta'avot. You choose the body for the wrong things, you bring upon the body death. you are constantly physically and emotionally, troubled and busy and running around because of your greed, that behavior is what the person gets in Gehinam. Because it's greed, it's asur, right? So this is the Hashem Yishmor, right? This is the place that imagine a person has to walk non-stop. You have to run. You can never stop. You can never stop. You didn't want to stop. You didn't want to pause, right? So constantly you will be running and you will be thinking and that, imagine that pain that never stop, never stop, never stop, never stop. This is kafakela. This is the punishment of the greed. It says but be careful. This is all midah keneged midah. You made that choice. This is the life you chose. So you created a world for yourself. These are the outcome. This is the final outcome of the ta'ava and of the greed. We've spoken about the immediate outcomes, and collateral damages, right? Essentially, the ultimate punishment is physical death and kafakela. Hashem Yishmor otanu. With this, Be'ezrat Hashem, we concluded the 5th perek, B'sha'a tova mutzlachat. And obviously, for that specific reason, and because we want to finish by, for this reason, we have to go back to the first pasuk of the perek. Beni lechokhmati akshiva lidvunati hatoznecha. Pay attention to my chokhmah and dive and learn and grow and internalize, right, my tevuna by tilting your ear. These are the benefits of the Torah and of the chokhmah and the mitzvot, and this is what they protect us from. Everything Shlomo HaMelech and the Gaon has teaching us in this perek. Sha'at tova. Tov. We'll finish here. Ezrat Hashem. So bli neder, next shiur Sha'at tova will be starting the perek Vav.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rava. Any questions?
Thank you for not ending on that last heavy pasuk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Besimcha.
So how do you break that cycle? I mean, lo aleinu, how does someone break that cycle? It sounds like once you're in there, you're in that kafakela, or if you've caused the death, and you're now getting.
He says be'en musar. But when it's the ta'avot, be'en musar.
Discipline.
And to stop the greed is the detachment between the work ethic and the greed, like we've learned. Right?
No, not that. I'm saying after 120,
no,
someone is already done.
You cannot break.
Someone's out. Okay.
Yeah, if it's not a tikkun from descendants afterwards, that actually can come and do a tikkun for you, for that person. That's the definition of a kafakela. It's a continuous state that never ends.
It's like the story that you told us of the guy that was getting the wood. He came back down to go get the wood for Gehenom. I forgot which rabbi it was, and then he saw him, and then he found his son, and he took his son, and he made him a Talmid Chacham.
Ken. Until something like this happens, kafakela continues. Yeah. Tov.
Thank you.
Besorot tovot. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rav.
Be'ava.